and they kind of forget how it works. When they come in and they get saved and about 20 people can't wait to get in line and put their arms around them, tell them we're glad you're back, we love you, and we're so glad that you changed and come back to God. Naomi kind of forgot the love that they had for her in her homeland. You know what? Everyone's come and everyone's gone. From the years that I've been here, I love them. Praise God, I love them. And so she went back and they said, no, you'll be called Naomi because you're still one of us. You know what? When you find Jesus Christ, you're always one of his. Amen? You may go back and sin. You may be lost. If you die that way, you'll be lost for eternity. But there always is a time when you belong to God. There's always a time when you belong to God. And I can't see how anyone who ever once really got saved could ever get away from that, knowing that even though they're doing wrong, they remember God. There's a man sitting in this audience, I won't call his name, but he said in his own testimony, he said he sat on the bar stool and he'd think of Jim McRoberts. He'd think of this church. He'd think of how when he come here and all of that. Well, thank God he's still back and sitting here today. You know why? Because one day he made a decision that I'm coming out of the valley of death and valley of sin and the valley of sorrow. I'm coming back, and now he's got a great life. Praise the Lord. Here is this girl that she brought back with her. I like love stories, don't you? I heard somebody one time, I don't know, they used to have love story books. Some of you young people may not remember it. I don't know what it's called. Now I think it's called The Enquirer. But back then they'd have, some of you all older enough know what it was. I know my sisters get them, you know. I heard somebody say, read those old love story books. I thought, well, thank God I've got an old love story book here. I just love to read. Woo, hallelujah. I'd rather read about love than hate, wouldn't you? But nevertheless, she came back, and it wasn't very long until Ruth went out into the field, thought she was going to have to work just like the other women. But it wasn't long till Boaz, you know, he noticed. You see, pray for about what you do. Maybe you think nobody loves you. Maybe you think that nobody will ever care about you. Well, just look at me. If I could find a pretty woman, you sure can. But that decision we make is a decision that stays with us. And that decision can determine whether or not we live a happy life or we live a life of misery. I've seen children. I want to tell you, children, why don't you take a good look at people that are drinking and on drugs and alcohol? Why don't you take a good look at people that broke God's commandment and went out and said they had a good time in the carnal knowledge way? Why don't you take a good look at their life and see where they are? I've seen lives totally destroyed in my family. Down to death came because of it. And maybe that's why I took a look at it and I said, I don't want that in my life. And at the age of 18 years old, I had a decision to make. Either take the bottle that my brothers tried to get me to drink out of, or either go drink from a fountain that I didn't know anything about. I knew that was bad. I have people tell me, well, I don't know much about that religion, about church. Listen, it's not religion. It's a decision to follow God through Jesus Christ. And I didn't know anything about the church. I didn't know, but I knew what I had wouldn't work. And so I found something when I was 18 years old. It's lasted all these years. And I'm 81 now. Do the math. I can't right quick. But I had 62 years, however long it's been. But let me tell you, it has worked down through my life. I made the right decision who I married. I bought a few cars I should have left alone. But it was a decision I had to make in 1970 when you all said, I want you for a pastor. Yes, a decision I had to make. I've had to make that decision every year since. And sometimes, you know, when things get a little slim, crowd down a little bit, the devil comes around said you made the wrong decision. But man, I said over here this morning, I hear that singing. I see people rejoicing. I see God's glory shining on his people's faces. And I sit over and get blessed. I say, Lord, there's no place in the world I'd rather be than sitting right over here listening to all of this. I don't care if there's not but 5 people here. You don't find that everywhere. Oh, hallelujah. I made the right decision, devil. I've seen slim times before. I've seen God take it and bring it back. I've seen people lost people by the way of death. But that's going to happen. But nevertheless, when I feel that presence of a holy God. My wife come home from the beauty shop yesterday. My cousin goes out there, second cousin or whatever. I never knew her very well or anything. But she said, she talked about church a little bit and said, I like a quiet church. I told my wife, anything that's dead is quiet. You like a quiet church, you're saying, I like something dead. I never heard a dead thing make a sound, did you? All it does is lay around and get in the way. Roadkill. You can drive right back, it don't wave at you, speak to you. I like a place that is lively with the presence and the power of an almighty God and decisions made by people who want to follow after God. No, I'm not saying there's anything wrong going to the quiet church. Don't get me wrong. If that's your bill of goods and you live for God, you're living a good Christian life and dedicated, why, you know, you're happy there, that's fine. But I'm just saying, I like to see people praise a living God. Because he inhabits our praise. It's no problem to turn on the television and hear them rave about him and curse him and do everything else. Bring in everything that's sin. But I was so good this morning when I sat over here, and I needed that. That's another thing. About going with God, he'll give you everything you need. And as they get a song, Ruth and Boaz fell in love. Ain't that the good part when somebody falls in love? You know, I love everybody in here. I love every man in here. I love every woman in here. But I'm just in love with one. See, there's a difference in loving and being in love. So I love everybody. I don't like it when you're sick. It breaks my heart when you lose somebody in your life. See, you're my family. But I thank God all those years ago, God, by the decision that God made for me, that we had our 60th wedding anniversary in June. And I'm looking forward to the 70th. She'll hold out that long. I don't know if I will. But you know what? If you got a decision this morning, been bothering you, and wrestling with it, and you just don't know what's keeping you awake at night, why don't you give it to the Lord and sleep like a baby? I slept so sound last night. I know there's things in life.